Welcome back, horror lovers. Today, we'll be sharing with you a story which will surely send shivers down your spine. For security reasons, we cannot disclose the countries where this happened, but if you discover them, you can leave them in the comments. Back then, the entire world was at war, and when it seemed that things couldn't get any worse, two of the most powerful families in the world had a dispute. Both were the market leaders in their respective nations. The families decided to sabotage the other, preventing the products the other family sold from reaching other countries. This resulted in a huge economic crisis on top of the war. At one point, the two families experienced immeasurable losses of money. They went into debt and had to close most of their businesses. This had a catastrophic domino effect. The businesses that depended on them also went bankrupt, and millions of people lost their jobs. The families had to find a solution, and thus they each contacted the corresponding presidents of their nations. The presidents gave them a location and address to go to. There, someone would wait for them with confidential information. They arrived at the established tower and saw a masked man dressed in a long black tunic. He confessed something to the families, that they had an alien weapon under their control, which was being kept in a secret, restricted area. The existence of this weapon was unknown to the general population, so they had to keep it secret as much as possible. At first, they didn't know how it worked. However, after rigorous studies, they discovered that they had to launch it from the sky, and once it touched the ground, it would explode. At first, the families refused to take part in that, saying that using that bomb would kill all the inhabitants of an entire city. However, they ended up accepting. They couldn't afford to keep losing money, or their countries would end up losing all resources for the war and would be defeated. One day, the plan was executed without telling anybody who wasn't participating. It was a surprise attack which prevented the enemy from defending themselves. An aircraft carried the bomb and flew to the enemy country, and once it was on top of the capital, it released a deadly projectile. The explosion could be heard thousands of kilometers away, and the entire city was devastated. Very few people survived. Even the aircraft pilot perished immediately, and the small minority that survived ended up with terrible body damage for the rest of their lives. The war ended and the attackers were the victors. However, many people learned that the weapon used wasn't human-made. They affirmed that on that day they saw from different parts of the world the giant head of an alien, and that when the bomb exploded is when the alien opened its mouth and threw a devastating and gigantic green flame. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like it. And if you want to see more Draw My Life horror videos, subscribe to our channel. See you in the next episode.